Good evening, everyone, here in the audience and streaming on YouTube. I'm Emily Truman. I serve as the 2025 Chair of the Gates County Board of Commissioners. I'm joined by Commissioner Nathan Berryman, Commissioner Jonathan Craddock, Commissioner Brian Roundtree, Commissioner Dave Forsyth, County Manager Scott Sauer, County Attorney Pitt Godwin, and Clerk to the Board Renee Draper. I'm going to ask Commissioner Berryman if he will provide the invocation and lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us all together tonight to do the county's business. We ask that you grant us the knowledge and the patience to conduct our county's business tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, sir. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? And if none, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor? With a show of hands, 5, that's unanimous. Agenda is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda, are there any questions about the consent items, or does anyone need clarification on any items? And if not, a motion to approve the consent agenda is in order.
Madam Chair, so moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, all in favor? And that is unanimous, so that will approve. Ms. Draper, are there any individuals signed up to speak to the board? No? Okay. We will move on to staff members. If there's any staff that need to come forward to address the board tonight. Out. Okay. We are moving right along, y'all. Okay, so we are going into old business. Manager Sauer, can you please brief the board on the resolution with the financial performance indicators of concern response?
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the board's receipt of our audit for June 30, 2024, which was received April 16th, there were several items on Ms. Bagasala's PowerPoint that are necessary to be addressed by the county, approved by the governing body, and submitted to the local government commission. We have 60 days from the date of the audit presentation, so we have until June 16th. And I'd like to walk through these findings one by one and provide a little background. On finding 2024-1, financial close and maintenance of general ledger accounts, with any audit, there are always adjustments that are necessary and some identified by the audit team, but there was an item in particular that was the source of much conversation. It was the adjustment of $335,000 and $691 posted to the lottery fund to correct a posting to accounts payable in cash. As the board recalls, we have several project ordinances for school construction. The high school renovations, I believe, is the biggest. There's Gatesville Elementary, I think, T.S. Cooper and Buckland. We were in the process of paying one of the invoices that had been approved by school administration, by their architect, so that we could pay the vendor, and that was the check in the amount of $335,691. This was at near the close of the fiscal year. I think it was June. William's nodding. I got the right month. And the county was provided an incorrect ACH number. So when we processed the payment through Southern Bank, as we normally do to any number of vendors, we were under the impression come June 30 that we had paid that vendor. Well, it turned out with the incorrect ACH information, After July 1, we were notified that the payment didn't go through. Staff double-checked, found out there was an error in the number that was given to us. So we ran it back through again with the new correct ACH number, and it was paid. But it was then paid out of the next fiscal year. And there was some debate as to which one of the fiscal years it should come out of, and ended up being a point of identification. I don't know if there's any more to add to that or not, William.
No, it basically, I don't know how you come up with it. Basically, it should have been done as AP once we went into the new year, and we just missed doing that. We were trying to get the payment out, simply found out an error.
So as the resolution states, that the governing body, the Board of Commissioners, will ensure management's attention to monthly balance sheet reconciliation, accurate revenue classification, and that financial statements properly present the financial position of the county in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The finding, which was identified as 2024-002, involves the restatement of prior year balances. And in so doing, caused what the auditor identified as material misstatements on opening balances in the new year. It's been my experience that audits often have prior year adjustments, but there's been a change in the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and this is GASB 100, it's noted down below, that for both of these adjustments related to the opioid settlement revenue, one for $34,355, the other for $825,873, because we had treated these as prior year adjustments, not being aware of the GASB 100, it was reported as an error that needed to be correction. And we make the point in the fourth bullet that as we have worked through the opioid settlement process, the state has acknowledged that some of its guidance to the jurisdictions that have received opioid settlement funds for both accounting and financial reporting have evolved over time. So this wasn't a smackdown, but it was one of those that they felt worthy of notation for the report in the governing body. Item next, finding 24-003 indicates that the county will ensure that procurement standards in the federal register will be adhered to ensure the procurement method used for contracts are appropriate based on the dollar amount and conditions specified in such regulations. In this case, the auditors issued what they called a significant deficiency over procurement. And I'd like to provide a little bit of history, because this issue began back in 2022, which was the first half of fiscal year 22-23. And not to try to push responsibility, but just to give a time frame, because this process and project evolved at a time prior to both my joining the administration and Mr. Robertson. The finance director had resigned here in Gates County in December of 2022. The manager resigned in January of 2023. And during this time, there was a lot of effort put forth to start addressing the issue of the water meters that needed to be replaced, because there had been a study earlier in 2022 identifying that at least 25% of our meters were just not functioning or functioning improperly. So this was a high priority for Gates County. Well, in the transition period with the finance position vacant, the manager position vacant, the county proceeded with seeking bids informally for the replacement of these meters. An interim county manager arrived in Gates County in February of 2023, and it was identified that the initial solicitation of pricing for the new water meters was not consistent with federal regulations for use of the ARPA funds. I mean, so that was fairly obvious that we needed to choose a different course of action. The resolution goes on to state the direction initiative of the interim manager who advised the Board of Commissioners that bids were invalid and will be rejected. Subsequently, Gates County initiated a formal procurement process consistent with said federal regulations and requirements. And following that, subsequently initiated a formal process which was documented in the Board of Commissioners meeting minutes and a copy provided to the audit team. And we explained to the audit team that this series of problem identification, corrective action by the county, and approval by the governing body all occurred in the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. And the auditors took the approach and made the opinion that a violation had occurred. Well, there was no contract signed, there was no money expended at that time. The corrective action was taken just to make sure that we were in compliance with the regulations. But the audit team, I guess because of the dollar amount, it was over $1 million, $1.4 million, decided this had to be something that they identified as a violation. And again, we're talking about fiscal 24, which was from July 1, 23 to June 24, and all of these activities happened in the fiscal year 22-23. So I want to share with the board part of the resolution that the commissioners approved in July, is actually July 5th of 2023, when they were ready to award the contract ultimately for the swap out and replacement of the meters. It states, whereas Gates County solicited informal bid proposals for the complete replacement of the water meter equipment and installation of apparatus, including new water meters with radio driven communications, and 3 proposals, and we had 3 informal bids ranging from $2.9 million to $1 million and 18,000. The resolution continues, whereas county administration advised the Board of Commissioners on March 17th. So I had not been on the ground but about 30 days when I had indicated to the board this needs to be addressed, and we followed through. Anyhow, advised the board on March 23rd or March 17th, 2023, regarding the procurement process, which was not in compliance with state or local procurement standards for a formal solicitation of bid proposals, as would be required for a project to proceed. And whereas Gates County's Department of Public Utilities advertised a public notice, a request for proposals, bid number 2023-06-01, beginning June 3rd, 2023, and published 3 dates in the Gates County Index, the Roanoke Chowan News Herald, for a bid opening date, June 23rd, 2023. The resolution continued, whereas the bid response was limited to 1 proposal, $1,400,693 from Consolidated Pipe and Supply for the replacement of water meters and associated apparatus and radio drive-by communication devices and software. Whereas Gates County Procurement Policy Section D, subparagraph 6, states there is no minimum number of requirements for apparatus, food, supplies, and equipment. If only 1 response is received, it can be opened and awarded based on a determination that prices are fair and reasonable. Therefore, be it resolved to approve the project bid for replacement of the Gates County water meters with the radio drive-by technology be awarded to Consolidated Pipe and Supply Company as recommended by the county manager, public utilities director, and county attorney. This resolution was adopted the 5th day of July 2023. So we had crossed over into the new fiscal year. So when the auditors were on the ground, part of their due diligence was to see what ARPA money had been spent. And of all the ARPA purchases or acquisitions, this was the largest of any of them. So that's why they wanted to examine it. But again, in their initial write-up, it stated that the auditors had identified it and notified the county. Well, that was not true, and after much conversation, we were able to prevail upon the thinking of the auditor that the language was changed to just simply state the county was notified that price quotes obtained would not be in compliance with the procurement standards. And again, the county was never notified, and it was something that we self-corrected, having identified that we had an issue. So in simple terms, the county was in a period of significant management and financial leadership transition, and within a few weeks of the problem being identified, corrective action was taken and approved by the Board of Commissioners, all during FY23. Item next, finding 24-004 to ensure that the county, as a recipient of public school capital fund dollars, those are lottery proceeds, meet the requirement to submit a brief final report using categories of expenditures listed in the grant application within 60 days of completion of the project. I guess on this one, we dropped the ball because we would have expected that the school system, who conceived the project, designed the project, bid the project, oversaw the implementation, would be the party that was responsible for submitting the brief report to the state as to how the dollars were spent. Nonetheless, the statutes apparently state that both the county and the Board of Education are responsible, so we are working to ensure that that won't happen again. And I believe Mr. Robertson has been in touch with Steve Harrell on that. Item last was not listed as a finding, but of course there was much discussion about the date of the audit submittal to the local government commission. So with this resolution, the board is pledging that Gates County is committed to addressing the late submission of the audit report, which was submitted April 7th, 2025, and offer the following consideration. Well, what I'd like to point to is that on April 16th, when the audit report was presented to this body, in addition to the comments and remarks, there was a PowerPoint presentation which had indicated that the date that the audit was submitted was March 31, 2025, which actually ended up being a triggering date for the LGC. As she explained, typically the date is October 31st. The date was pushed back to December 31st because just about all, particularly counties, were struggling with that because of opioid, lottery, any number of things. And not that it's an excuse, but I'll remind you that I missed several days of work in December between Christmas and the holidays with just being sick as a dog. I think I missed a board meeting because I was laying in bed. Nonetheless, we worked diligently to the point where we had submitted all documents, signed all engagement information, and had assurances that the audit would be submitted to the LGC to meet the March 31 deadline. For whatever reason, it wasn't submitted, and the submission to the local government commission is by the auditor. They have the credentials to access the portal where it is uploaded. So it was uploaded on the 7th of April, not March 31st, and it was on April 14th that we received notice that our audit had been received, but also that it was late based on their deadline having been loaded on the 7th of April. And we were not penalized. We were able to demonstrate that we did at least have it in during the month of April, and we move on. So this resolution is prepared for the board's consideration, and in the local government commission's procedures, they would like individual members of the governing body to sign the document. And they ask to have a minimum of a majority. So I'm hoping maybe we can have all 5, but that's up to the leadership of the board. But we need to have this returned to the LGC by the 16th of June.
So would it be appropriate to do a motion to approve the resolution then?
Absolutely.
Okay. So can we get a motion to approve the, trying to find the words here, to approve the response to the independent auditor's findings and recommendations of fiscal matters, so that we can forward this to the auditors?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay. We
I'll
have
second that motion.
Motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I'd just like a minute or two to read it more, if that's all right. I mean, I'd hate to be just seeing a 6-page document for a minute or two before I have to vote to approve it.
So we will give a moment for that. And anyone at home that was wanting to see it, it should have been a part of the packet posted for the Sunshine List and also posted online, correct? Okay. All right.
So, but this, just a question, so this is not actually a finding, it's just addressing the fact that it was a late submission is what that last part is
It's
about?
Yes.
a response, yeah.
Well, it was written up as a concern, but wasn't actually called a finding. It didn't have a label like the others of 003 or 004.
Okay. All right.
All right, so we have that. There was no discussion. We'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. All right, and that is all 5. So it passes, and we will get those signatures.
Well, I thank you very much. And based on the board's approval last regular meeting of the contract for the auditors, we are having our kickoff meeting for the audit for the 25 fiscal year on June 11th. So we are rolling.
All right, thank you, sir.
Get to jump right from one to another. Huh?
It never ends.
Going into new business, Ms. Draper, if you could come to the podium and present the item for the board. And that should be in here as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. In your packet, y'all received an application from Sam Solomon, I believe I'm saying that
Sam Solomon,
correctly,
yep.
for the Board of Adjustments. All criteria is met for the requirements on that board, and there is a recommendation from Ms. Lisa Cherry.
Yeah, and I will say he is here tonight if he did have anything he'd like to say, and if not, that's fine, but I'll give him the opportunity. Mr. Solomon?
Sam Solomon, Gatesville, Madam Chair, Commissioner Scott, Pitt. I've got a lot of experience in business, dealing from small and remote offices to international and national business, Link International, stuff like that. We built out networks, we did cybersecurity computers, and a lot of wireless and computer work. And my wife and I have been in the business for close to 40 years. I'm in a good position to help businesses find ways to survive and thrive. And that's what I want to see, is help all of them get started. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we've had a chance to look over that. I will leave it to the floor if we have a motion to approve.
I'll make a
Mr.
motion.
All right, do we have a second?
Second that motion.
All right, is there any discussion?
No, I
Right.
just reiterate,
Uh-huh.
I know Mr. Solomon personally, and everything he says is absolutely true. I ask him his advice routinely on lots of occasions.
I
So,
agree.
strong candidate.
I
Appreciate
agree.
you applying and willing to serve.
Thankful to, see another applicant and another board seat filled. So we have the motion in the second. We'll call for a vote. All in favor? All right, and that is all 5, so that carries. Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Okay. And now, moving down to the presentation of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025-2026. Manager Sauer is going to present, and I believe from the podium. We'll give him a moment to get in place.
Confirmed with the board chair, she'd be okay if I stood for this one.
I like to stand when presenting
That way
too, so I get
can
it.
running start.
We got the sheriff back there to block the door.
That's why we got the agent, my vehicle's back here.
So the second entrance is,
As long as I can hurl over the
I was a defensive linebacker in football, I'll say that.
just make sure we get that recorded.
First, let me say, this budget has really been different. And in large part because of the assistance with assembling the minutia for this. And I can't say enough about having Ms. Draper here with us. You may have noticed over the weekend, I guess last night or night before, last night I think we had materials on Facebook, materials on the county website page. We also have a QR code that works. I did my first upload of a QR code myself. And within the voluminous line item detail, she put together a key to all departments and where to find those, because it can really be a struggle at times to work your way through that. So Renee, thank you. Well, tonight is really when the budget process starts. I have an opportunity to bring to you a balanced budget, hopefully meeting all or most of your expectations, but then working through and processing the input from the public, the interest and discussions from the board, and developing a final product. So this is not intended to be a final product, but a presentation of a balanced budget. And I think most important, we hit the revenue neutral tax rate that we talked about on May 21st as a result of the hard work of our tax administrator and the revaluation team at 66 cents. And my technical support has agreed they will help me as I turn a page. They're going to flip the PowerPoint for our viewing audience. And again, the revenue neutral rate comes with the closure of determining the market value for all real personal public utilities and motor vehicles that are registered in Gates County as of January 1, 2025. The proposed tax rate will generate a levy of $8,656,767 for the board to work with. There were a couple of priorities that I took the liberty of incorporating into the, I guess you'd call it the baseline budget right off the bat. One is the consolidated 911 communications with Perquimans County. We are under a contract, as was adopted by the board May 1st of last year. The agreement was we split the operating cost 50/50. The increase next year for Gates County is $87,020. Next, touches on some work that the sheriff and the board have engaged in tandem, I think in partnership, and with a lot of dialogue. And he has submitted a list of salary adjustments to meet his leadership team requirements to address compression amongst some of his mid-range staff like sergeants and so, because when the board elevated the base salary for a certified deputy to $45,000 back in, I guess that was November last year, bringing those folks up really brought the folks in the middle too close to those newer members of his team. So we have taken his recommendations, worked with him to ensure they get all the appropriate fringe benefits built in, and most importantly, a lot of the money we used for this was money that he gave up 2 years ago when he agreed as a budget compromise because of all the challenges we had with 911 and other things to scrape things together. He had agreed to keep a position frozen for 2 years, and he honored that, and now that has been fully restored so that he can make these changes and hopefully get his folks where he needs them. And I'd just like to say that I think that work that the elected sheriff and the elected governing body has done is remarkable. And there was a question asked during our Board of Education meeting inquiring about what specifically had their organization done to save money given the climate and the economy we work in. And I think in Gates County, the best example that I could provide for you is that the sheriff and the finance officer worked together to negotiate with Enterprise Fleet Management for a leasing and maintenance system that now has, are all of your vehicles now replaced, or are you still waiting receipt on it? But we are making great progress. And again, not to always talk about history, but you don't have to read too far back where there was a lot of discussion about just trying to get the sheriff 3 vehicles. And there was a budget amendment passed middle of the year for about $135,000 to acquire those. And I think our leasing payments stretch those dollars a lot further. And more importantly, his folks are in brand new vehicles, very fuel efficient, and I hope give them a sense of pride for the organization they serve. So I appreciate that the board has been so supportive for that. On the next page, I simply hit the funding categories for public safety at 4.9 million, education 3.1. That includes also the capital outlay, and I think there was one, it might have been the fines and forfeitures in there. General government at $3,023,000, human services 2.5, $500,000 for debt service, which is about half what it was last year because the board had finished the final payments on the Viper radio system that was acquired. Transfers to other funds. The economic development category covers things like soil and water, cooperative extension, and things of that nature. Cultural and recreation is your library and recreation department, which is now the community center. And I highlight those because these are categories specified by the Local Government Commission in the chart of accounts. So when they're looking at audits year to year or from county to county, all of us are rolled up into those same categories. The budget plan, as it's been prepared, is $16,615,347. That is actually a decrease from the budget ordinance that this body adopted a year ago for the FY 24-25. It's $323,343, or 2% below last year's ordinance, or 1.91. Hitting the target for the revenue neutral was not the easiest thing to do. And as much as I really wanted to have it in it, there's no cost of living for staff. I had run a model that had a cost of living in it. A 3% cost of living would cost $199,000 and some change. That's local dollars, because we have positions that are partially funded for social services. We have positions in the enterprise fund for, meaning the utility fund for water and wastewater, that are supported by their user fees, water rates, and then the GITS program is a self-funded program. So that was not included. We are still working through some organizational changes that the board worked on just a year ago. The community center operations are now under Gates County's authority and have been for just over 12 months. The 911 communications, which merged and consolidated with Perquimans County, is a year into that process as of March 1st. Animal control and the cooperation with animal shelter is now coordinated by county administration. And we're also into the second full year of the soil and water conservation partnership with Gates County and Hertford County for technical services. Staffing adjustments in the proposed 25-26 budget plan include the following. In administration and finance, William Robertson identified a vacant position due to staff turnover, which he is suggesting be frozen and not funded for the next year, and we'll evaluate as we go. Board of Elections has one additional part-time office assistant, so that means within the Board of Elections, they now have two part-time positions that are funded just under 1,000 hours to avoid the federal requirement for benefits. So they've got 999 hours each for those two positions, plus the funds that are budgeted for precinct officials and folks that work on election day. And as I mentioned, in the sheriff's office, his position, which was previously frozen, is now fully funded, and those dollars have been incorporated into his new leadership structure. In the Building and Grounds Department for maintenance, there's a part-time custodian that we're recommending be extended to full-time. In Department of Social Services, there is a one full-time position, and income maintenance caseworker 3, dedicated for quality assurance to make sure that we have full compliance with all the requirements associated with Medicaid expansion and the many programs. As you may look at audits from other counties, one of the areas where many counties have findings that I don't know that we've had any here recently in Gates is file management within DSS. That has not been an issue here in Gates County, and we hope to maintain that. And I have full confidence in Mr. Smith that will work out, and we anticipate 50% of that position will be reimbursed by the state. In the Public Utilities Department, there is one full-time senior meter technician added, funded 100% by the utility fund. I'm going to jump down to the global picture of the budget request the county's received, and we talked a little bit about this just last week. If the board were to consider funding all requests that were put forth, it would require, what's my number? I just lost my place. It would require 4.5 million in new general fund funding. That would take your tax rate, which is presently 84 cents, up by 16 cents to $1 per assessed value, or 34 cents above your revenue neutral tax rate of 66 cents. As we discussed in the joint session just last week on the 28th, of that 4.5 million, the bulk of it comes in the form of request from the Board of Education. Specifically, $2.845 million, and basically doubling your current expense for next year. The board, I think, has been fairly supportive, steady, and consistent in its appropriations for the last number of years, with a steady appropriation for current expense at $2,953,000, and for the 4 preceding years at $2.8 million. All the while, we've seen a decline in our student population as the state measures it by the average daily membership. From 2021 to the current year, 2025, we've seen nearly a 15%, 14.7% is the actual calculation, losing 238 students, dropping from 1,618 to 1,380, and depending on the sources in Raleigh, that number may be even a little bit lower than that. But by comparison, because many counties and school districts use per pupil funding as a measure for current expense appropriations, in the Gates County history, we've seen an increase of per pupil funding of nearly 20%. It's 19.88, from $1,785 per pupil to $2,140 per pupil. Some of this may seem a bit repetitive from your joint meeting on the 28th, but I think given that we may have different audience members viewing, I'd like to touch on a couple milestones. The board had a joint meeting on March 4th with the Board of Education, where we received our first look at their budget planning, which was an initial funding plan with an increase of $500,000, and the suggestion that day, as I recall, that it could be split between 2 fiscal years, $250,000 each year. The chart that is on the page that's now reflected on your screen included the bottom 2 line items reflecting the additional $250,000, putting the current expense at $3,203,000 for both 25-26 and 26-27. In that same joint meeting, the commissioners were presented with a graph tracking the average daily membership for the last 10 fiscal years, and you'll see the chart with the numbers below as provided by school administration. My memory of that March 4th meeting, a couple of things came right to mind. Number one, there was discussion about the universal nutrition or school lunch and breakfast program, which I felt seemed to be well received by the county commissioners, although there were questions, and also the discussion of school facilities and the underutilization of some of the existing schools in light of the declining student population. And at that meeting on the 4th, the superintendent introduced, or announced rather, that there was going to be a meeting the next day on March 5th to meet with a consultant to do a study of potential consolidation. And maybe this is an editorial comment, but I left that meeting with the sense that there was a consensus in that room that one of the possible incomes could be the closure of at least one elementary school. And I say that because I don't recall anyone objecting or saying, no, this, I mean, there seemed to be a willingness on both boards that we need to study this, we need to look at this. Okay, another historical piece. 24 months ago, this Board of Commissioners was faced with a request for school funding from the Board of Education with a 30% funding increase in current expense. They wanted to take it from the $2.953 million to a figure of $3,875,520, which would have been at that time the equivalent of a 9-cent tax rate increase. And part of the discussion and explanation was that their fund balance reserves were rapidly depleting, and they had identified $1.2 million in fund balance at the end of fiscal 21, $945,000 remaining fund balance at the end of fiscal 22, that for fiscal 22-23 they had appropriated $692,000. And again, this was during fiscal 22-23 that these discussions took place. They were estimating that by the close of that fiscal year, June 30, 23, the remaining fund balance would be less than $250,000. And I'm not going to read the whole next page to you, but just suffice it to say for our audience and for the record, the upshot of several meetings with the Board of Education was an agreement whereby Gates County was going to provide a one-time, non-recurring appropriation of $828,000. It was not to have any impact on adding to the current expense and setting a new baseline for future years. There was an agreement there would not be any efforts to challenge any future funding allocations by the board for a period of 3 years. And this was adopted, put in place, and we worked through the processes as stipulated by the statute, where the monies that Gates County appropriated were capital dollars. Capital dollars transferred to a capital line item in the Board of Education's budget. Then there was due diligence on their part where they had to present a financial plan, a resolution, and a description of the urgency and emergent conditions they were facing, so that this board considered allowing them to convert capital money, the $828,000 to operating expense, to replenish their general fund, and that happened. Looking forward, 1 penny on the tax levy next year, we've estimated through the work of Taylor Powell and Mr. Robertson, 1 cent, 1 penny will yield $131,163, whereas in the current fiscal year, 1 penny is estimated to yield $102,143. It was at the chairman's request that we had that joint meeting last week on the 28th. I walked out of there feeling better about a joint meeting than I have in a long, long time. I mean, y'all had some great discussion, some effective inquiry, and dialogue. Now, was it to everybody's satisfaction? I don't know, but I felt that there was good work underway, and for the audience here and beyond, After a brief break that evening, the Board of Education took from its list of 23 items, which were expansion for the current expense budget, and listed those for the Board of Commissioners. I followed up the next day with Dr. Williams to confirm this is not in priority order. They are all, including the lunch and breakfast and nutrition program. And I want to also just make sure to clarify from a strategic position for the board, the capital outlay for the technology component, like all capital outlay historically in Gates County, like many, do not use the general fund to pay for the capital outlay. They use the school capital reserve fund to pay for the capital outlay. The proposed budget that's before you this evening has the current expense at $2.953 million, level with the current year, $200,000 for capital outlay, level with the current year. These are proposals, and if the board were to entertain any number different than that $200,000, I would suggest that you look closely at the capital reserve fund, which is fueled by your restricted sales tax monies. We have Article 40, 42, and 44. 40 and 42 are very specific. They can only be used for school capital and debt service. With Article 44, those dollars have a little bit wider range. They can be used for public education, for community college, and even economic development if there's an initiative the board would like to consider. At the close of business on Friday, Mr. Robertson and his staff ran a trial balance sheet for me of all county funds. The capital reserve fund as of May 30 had $2,236,832. So I believe you've got some room to work with. There are dollars already applied for debt service. Again, our school debt service now is $520,000. Is that about right? I think that's what we had in there. Well, nonetheless, if the board were to entertain the entire complement of proposals, that's $960,000, which would equate to almost 6 cents on a tax rate. But if you slide off the $200,000 and consider possibly treating that as capital outlay at $760,000, that's 4 3/4 cents. So again, you have options. This is, I guess, if anything, sort of like an a la carte arrangement where, depending on where you might want to go with which particular priority or revenue consideration, I think having a capital reserve fund that's strong and in good shape, you've got some opportunities for making adjustment to this budget, however you might want to consider. Item next, local sales taxes. We are proposing a local sales tax combined revenue of $3,712,105. That's $202,805 above the current budget ordinance, which would be 5.78%. We've provided a chart with the county's actual revenue per the county's audits based on our experience. And bear in mind, and we've talked through this in the past with some adjustments made for the sheriff and DSS at one point a couple years ago. We don't know for sure what our revenue is going to be for this fiscal year until, is it 4 months in? 4 months into the next fiscal year. So those revenues, as we meet with the auditors, will be projected as accounts receivable. But we have taken stock of what the last 4 quarters look like in prior years and feel confident that that's a workable number. Fund balance appropriated. The recommendation, the suggestion is that the board consider funding some non-recurring capital outlay totaling $317,463, of which $167,000 is for emergency management, and we'll get you a list of all those items. $113,000 for building and grounds improvements, including out at the medical center location, the health department and county annex, a new roof on both of those structures. And speaking of roofs, $24,000 for the county share of the renovations to replace the roof at the Tri-County Animal Shelter. One other item that's not in this budget, as I tried to pull our revenue neutral target together, and again, all of these are recommendations, all of these provide options for the board to consider, but as we were trying to make adjustments, one of the cuts in the building and grounds budget was a line item for $100,000 for our effort for the transition from GITS over to the county annex building, so that we can work toward that transition to move gyms then back to GITS. Just because it's not in the recommended column in my budget doesn't mean it can't be considered, because you've got some other, if you're willing to use it, capital outlay items that if you wanted to defer an equal amount, you could transfer or swap one for the other. In the next few weeks, this becomes your budget, your priorities, and you may have some priorities that are a little bit different than what we've presented here tonight. I'd like to talk about benefits for your staff. Built into the proposed budget is the new retirement rate for general county government employees. That retirement rate is 14.4%. This is an increase of almost 5.5% for the new year. There's also a new retirement rate for those that are in law enforcement. That new rate is 16.08%, an increase of 6.9%. And this is a target that moves every year and has for the last 6 or 7 years. It comes through the state treasurer's office, and we really have no choice but to pay the bill, or I don't know. I mean, that's our cost as an employer. I will add, by way of comparison, when the Board of Education shared its budget, the retirement system required funding for the Board of Education for its employees is presently 24.04%, moving to 25.02. So that's significantly higher than, and that's dictated by the state of North Carolina, but that's considerably higher than what your general government or your law enforcement personnel enjoy. Health insurance, I'm going to combine these. Health, dental coverage, and life insurance for the positions that are funded will next year cost $904,000. The way this is broken down, the health insurance premium per employee, we pay 100% of the health insurance component. It's $9,544 per employee. The dental's $349 per employee, and the group life is $48.24. And that's the current payment. Next year's payment, it's up to $9,942.12. So again, we're seeing an increase there as well. That is built in to your baseline budget. In terms of the county's risk management coverage, the annual premium for your property and liability assurance through the risk management pool offered by the Association of County Commissioners is $210,695, an increase of $18,904, or just under 10%. The annual premium for workers' compensation is $50,564, an increase of just under $1,900, or 3.86%. Finally, debt service, $532,590. This is your central middle school project. The loan was initiated in July 2018, $8.2 million, financed at 2.3%. The final loan payment will be May 1st, 2038. And according to our most recent audit, the outstanding balance is $5,740,000 in principal, $990,150 in the remaining interest. So that total remaining obligation is $6,730,150. And I wanted to share for clarification, in some further conversation I've had with the superintendent, when they were recounting the history of some of our capital projects under the Central Middle School project, it was listed, I think, at $10.2 million. Basically, the way that worked out, as I understand it, the school system received a grant for $2.5 million. The county made up the difference with the 8.2 financing to successfully launch that project, and we'll have it paid off in 2038. Couple of things I want to highlight, because I'm one of the old dogs in the room for county government service. A rarity for any county, and when you go to meet with our District 1 colleagues tomorrow night in Camden County, it'd be interesting to ask, in their sheriff's department, what's their vacancy rate? In their DSS program, what's their vacancy rate? I believe we're fully staffed at the present time, either with them in school or just about to sign the contract, but he's singing a much happier tune than a couple of years ago. So, and that's rare. So you should really celebrate that when you go over to Camden County tomorrow night. Likewise, in DSS, they're fully staffed. That does not happen, hardly ever. And the board has taken some fairly significant steps to really work to retain some of your most seasoned folks. Mr. Smith had me meet with every single one of his employees, and in one group it was rather jovial, in another group it was almost hostile. I would not tell them where I live for fear they might come see me, but nonetheless, those folks made an impression on me. I think Commissioner Roundtree could attest that they make a great impression on the service they provide to our citizens, and being fully staffed is a huge success for Gates County. I want to mention something about, we talked about the water meters and how critical it was that we get our replacement meters in as swiftly as possible. Well, the trigger that was pulled and the alarm that sounded was August 8th, 2022, when North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and the North Carolina Local Government Commission designated the Gates County water and wastewater utility as a distressed unit. That's not the list we want to be on. That's the list we're working to be relieved of, and we're making strides, but it's taking time. And since I've given a shout out to Sheriff Campbell and Mr. Willie Smith, I'd like to give a shout out also to Brad Arnold, who came in just a few months before that correspondence hit us. I've talked about what a pleasure it's been to have Renee Draper join the team, but I'd also like to mention Warren and William, who seem to have just taken over that end of the pew, and their staff in Marie Roundtree, who just retired, Daphne Walker, Victoria Hoggard, Christy Byram, for what they do to help get the information that we need in assembling this package. And I'm going to say this, it wouldn't be fair to not mention some others. I mean, I've been here now about 24 months. The Honorable Kathy Horton, your Register of Deeds, does a lot with very little. And sometimes the best we can do to repay her is a little bit of office improvement, and Crystal Phillips and her staff are doing that. And again, my hat's off to Crystal. Patrice Lassiter still is in the running as the longest tenured county department head. And if you want to have fun, sit down with her and see if you can name all the county managers that she's had to train over those years. Taylor Powell, who's been with the county many years, but just a couple of years in the administrator's chair, in just her second budget with William and I, but her first revaluation has really done an outstanding job. We'll be done soon. We have a Board of E&R meeting on the 18th. Lisa Cherry with Planning and Economic Development, again, just a very talented member of the staff. Pat Familar, she doesn't get a county paycheck, but she receives a check through our regional partnership with the Albemarle Regional Library. She's got a rare history with us here. I mean, I don't know if it's 40 now or 41. I mean, they don't make them like that anymore. And anything we can do to help maintain the caliber and quality that we have there, I hope we'll do it. Next on my list is Stormy Butts. Again, he doesn't get a county paycheck, but he's a community partner running the Gates County Emergency Rescue and EMS Squad. And again, when it hits the fan, his team is the team you want arriving. Again, cooperative extension. When we talk about the number of employees in Gates County, I learned coming into Gates County a couple of years ago that we really don't count cooperative extension because they get a paycheck from NC State and A&T because they're faculty appointments. Well, I've always believed you need to treat cooperative extension as county staff because they participate part and parcel in everything we do. So while they may not be in the total position count, they're on the list, and I can't say enough about Helen Yore and her team. Another person who's not an employee, but I confide in and cry on his shoulder often is Pitt Godwin. I mean, we've got a lot of talent assembled here, and again, really, I can't take credit for any of it. I inherited a good situation. Mr. Tutwiler in emergency management, Scott Pierce in IT, and I hope as you visit some of the offices around, ask staff to show you some of the security and technology improvements that the board helped fund through the use of the ARPA money. We've got panic alarms at each workstation. We've now got cameras and monitoring screens so that in a building like this, we can see who's coming and going, because there are times when there might just be 2 or 3 people in this building, and people come in through the front door and could easily slip in when they don't need to be. And lastly, I'll mention, I'm really excited about the enthusiasm of Christy Gaskins in elections, Mr. Norris Raby with the Community Center, and we are wearing Matt Lowe out. I think he's finding how big the geography is on the other side of the Chowan River, but he's going great guns for us. The next few pages are just summary, and again, these are summarized by the categories that are in your audit. So if you wanted to open up your audit book and go back historically, you can follow those. General government, public safety, human resources, education, economic development for us, which is the planning and zoning, the soil and water, and the cooperative extension. Some counties have a few others based on their organization chart. For us, cultural and recreation is the library and recreation, the debt service we've spoke of. The transfers is really where we track the movement of money between funds so that we know where your restricted dollars are going. There's no money budgeted for contingency. Total general fund, as I mentioned, was $16,600,000, $323,000 less than the last budget ordinance. All total, all funds for your operating funds, $22,141,000. Your budget message also includes fee schedules. I'm not going to flip through all those, but they're available on the website for folks. But I do want to talk a little bit about benchmarking, and if Renee could help me out. I want to, if you'll indulge me for 10 more minutes, expand upon the Sweet Five, and I'm going to suggest for the fun of it, we add in Perquimans and Chowan. So we would call this the Sweet and Sour Seven. How about that? So again, I don't offer this to prove anything other than
Thank you, ma'am.
give you a benchmark. And my primary source was the local government commission's comparison of tax-based assessed valuation, and that's where I started. But then I added in population, I added in square miles. We note the last year of revaluation. And of course, for us, since the last year was 8 years ago, we will go from being the lowest tax base in the 7-county comparison at 7 of 7 to 5 out of 7. And of course, others will change over time as well. We've got the tax rates, and these were all as of the audit for '24. So it's not what they're currently in, it's not what they're proposing, but just to give you a snapshot, because every year with your audit, it's simply a snapshot in time, a point in time. The sales tax by county per their audit. The one that surprised me the most is the comparison between the Gates County sales tax and the Chowan County sales tax. And I spend more time in Chowan County with groceries and things of that nature, and see the parking lots and see the economic activity, that I look at it and think, how can that be? $4 million at fiscal '24, and you've seen the history earlier in the budget message. Well, I've gone back and looked at the audits online for Chowan County, and every year we're $500,000 to $700,000 above them. Well, William broke it down for me and explained, well, it's all not economic activity. There's a formula in a couple of the categories where it's based on a calculation they do in Raleigh. I wish I could explain it and we can get you a copy of the legislation, but the variable for Gates is about 2 or 3/10% above the variable for Chowan, and that's what makes the difference. It makes it look like we're selling more hard goods or what have you, but we enjoy the benefit of a legislative formula that has served Gates County well. I'd like to point out for this snapshot in time of all those counties, by their audited general government category, Gates County has the lowest general government expenditure at that point in time, June 30 of 2024. We also have next to the lowest public safety expenditures, but when you break it out, funding for the sheriff in 2024 was the lowest in that 7-county comparison. Same with jail cost. But I'd like to think because we're doing a good job in the sheriff's office, we have fewer folks that we're holding for trial. Looking forward next year, I think if you look at the number for the sheriff's office, I believe it's up about $250,000, primarily because of the investment you've made in compensation adjustments. So we're fighting our way up on that chart. In Gates County, Allegheny, and Washington counties, they have no programs that they list as environmental protection, but you can see we've got an awful lot in the economic development and physical development. I think that's part of the difference. The real highlight is the health department. As members of the Albemarle Regional Health Department, we get a significant return in services for the $131,000 that we put into the health department. By comparison, Jones County is spending 10 times the amount of local dollars for their health department, and I don't believe they're in one of the regions down there. It just, being a member of a regional district really just makes good economic sense, and kudos to the board when that decision was made a decade or so ago. Couple of interesting other things. Washington County. I once met a gentleman named Dr. Julius Walker. I don't know if he's still a commissioner or not down in Washington County, but I met him in 2014 when he first got elected. And he said to me, he said, "Mr. Manager, what they didn't tell me before I ran was that Washington County agreed to pay the pension for all retirees from the hospital system when they went through one of their changes. They budget each year $450,000 for the hospital retiree pensions, and the figure that they spent as of FY24 was $329,000. It's just interesting to see what arrangements and situations counties can find themselves. Not casting a value judgment, just making an observation. The last thing that I had put together was just a list from the Department of Revenue, if you want a snapshot of all the tax rates in the state, because a lot of people put credence in that tax rate, and they have bragging rights, and they go to conferences and they talk about, because places like Carteret County, Moore County, Ashe County, they all want to talk about who's below 40 cents or 35 cents. And then you start talking with some of the big boys. I'm going to pick on Pender County. Pender County's got a tax rate of 73 3/4 cents on the 100. And we're at 84 cents present. We're thinking, well, gosh, they're really doing a good job. Well, in Pender County, they have a county-wide service district for EMS, 9 1/4 cents. But when they rank the counties, they get to use that general tax rate. Lots of folks have situations like that. Cumberland County has 18 fire districts, and each one of them have a tax rate of 15 cents. So when you're looking at Cumberland County and you see that 79.9, add 17. Of course, if you have city taxes, those would be added in for municipalities. And they have a nickel tax for rural recreation. So there's, again, this is looking long-term. An adjustment, a change, a different line of thinking would take you a year or more to put into place. But I say that to get back to the discussion about the Article 46 sales tax that we talked about a little bit at your planning session in January. We've confirmed, I think we've reported that the earliest Gates County could have that considered on a voting referendum would be the first primary election in the next even year, 26, would be March. And you can do it either at your primary or your general election. The General Assembly no longer allows the special elections for a single item like that. They're trying to get the biggest bang for their election department dollars. So if that's a course of action we want to be planning for, that'd be a good one to possibly put on your list. And that's really about all I have. I know we've put a lot in your wheelbarrow this weekend.
Yeah. I think this is great. I like everything put on one place. So yeah, so I guess we are moving to the close of the presentation. Before we move into questions, something that we have discussed is at an hour-and-a-half mark, taking a 10-minute recess. We're close to that, so I think if we could give the opportunity for us to get our questions together and take a brief recess, we'll be back together in 10 minutes. There will be a 10-minute clock on the wall, so we will hopefully
That's
stay
great. Thank you.
at the 10 minutes and not have to round everybody up. So if we could get a motion to go into recess
So moved.
and a second.
So second.
All right, all in favor? All right, back in 10. All right, if we can get a motion to come out of recess.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor? Unanimous. Well, all right, we are back in session. We are going to move into the question portion. If I start with you, Commissioner Roundtree. Okay, I'll start with Commissioner Roundtree for questions on the budget.
Yes, I want to thank County Manager Sauer, also Financial Director, Mr. Wim, on a great budget. I do have a question concerning the cost of living. I believe it's correct, you said 0% that you proposed, and you were looking at several models. In those models, do you look at a 1% and a 2% COLA? And if so, how much differential would that be towards his proposed budget?
Well, we had a 3% calculated at 199,000, so we could divide that by 3, and that'd be a fairly close approximation of what the net cost would be to the general fund. So just under 70,000.
Just under 70,000 for 1%.
66, 67,000, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We'll move along. Commissioner Berryman, did you want to go next?
In reviewing the budget that you sent out, and thank you very much. This line item budget that we got shows an awful lot of work that your team has completely put together here. And Mr. William, thank you very much for your team as well, putting everything together for this.
He does the heavy lifting.
Lot of hard work went into this. And it shows in the detail as far as the pluses and minuses that are in there. And I enjoyed going through and reading it yesterday. The first question I had is for proofs and services audit when it comes to, it's 4130. Let me get my little key out that I had to refer back to this a couple different times.
There is a page number at the top, too.
Yeah, so page number 10.
Okay.
Line item 11-4130-191.
Okay.
And
Professional services, that's the audit, that's the audit that we'll be paying the Malden and Jenkins group. That's the general fund portion.
Okay.
There's a portion that comes through the utility funds too. I think the total number was 115, is that correct?
Okay.
That's just the general fund.
So what was the increase when the actual for 2024 was 45,000, and then in 25 it goes to 77, and now we're budgeting 95.
You got any thoughts on that, Wade?
Well, I know they've actually included a different single audit in the proposal, an additional single audit.
Okay.
Depending on the amount of money involved, requires single audits to be performed in certain categories. We usually do one in DSS always, but last year we had to do one with lottery funds, and they project us to have the same thing doing one next year.
Okay.
So that's an increase just in the work they have to perform.
Okay. So are we going to carry it forward from 77,000, or is it, we still think it's going to be another?
Well, the board approved a contract a month ago for 115.
All right, that's why I was getting at. Was it
Yes.
coming from that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So we've planned for that.
On page 13, the water and sewer indirect costs, what is that?
That's where we charge for the cost of county overhead for that utility system.
Okay.
If this was a separate utility like Owassa down at the coast or Cape Fear, they'd have their own administration, accounting, purchasing, personnel, and this is where we recover
Okay.
the
Yeah,
counties.
I saw you were budgeting a negative number, and you can see the actuals that they were negative numbers along the way, and I figured that was,
Yes.
it was some type of inter-office accounting that you were doing there.
That's correct.
And so in 2024, it went from credit of $198,000, and now we're budgeting $270,000 for that.
As we are moving forward with these capital projects, and I'm spending more and more of my time with those projects, we're trying to recoup that for the county. And we're going to try, is it 30% we're using, or is it
I think it's about another 30, like 29.
20? Okay. But as those projects have evolved and become active, we've tried to recoup that.
Okay. On page 27, this is for your buildings and grounds. Salary increases, you got, in 2024, we were at $190,000, and 2026, you show a budgeted amount of $281,000.
Is that the part-time or going to full-time?
Well, it wouldn't be,
It's under
Yeah,
salaries.
it's a $90,000 increase. I was just kind of curious. See, you know, that's the actual, this is budgeted.
50,000.
I may have to have a day or two to I don't have any notes in front of
That's
me.
fine.
Okay.
Unless,
I think part of it is the part-time going to full-time, but also the part-time that was not full year.
Okay, so this is,
Came in like maybe about half a year.
that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
all right.
But then, does the going from part-time to full-time requires benefits?
Well, that's all broken out separately with your hospitalization and everything, because that coincides with your hospitalization that went up. Okay.
Yep.
And we got, I only have a couple dog ears here. One of the points that I was actually called about, because somebody posted something online and I got a phone call about it. But for the record, it looks like, by the way I read this, is that the rescue squad was funded at $174,000 in 2024, and this year we've
Give me
increased
a
that.
page number, I don't have that. Are
Excuse
you
me,
just
I'm
looking
sorry.
at the summary?
Page 51.
Okay.
And this is the rescue squad allocation. In 2024, we were at $974,000 is what the actual cost was. And we are budgeting $1,091,000 for this year. So just for those,
Which is,
Dispatch.
that's correct, which
Yeah.
is less than the request of the 1,238,000.
yeah, but it's still more than what they received in 2024, is my point.
Yes.
So that, I got a phone call about that
Well,
today, so.
And some of the history on that, 23-24 was my first budget with Gates County. It's when we were addressing the concerns about the cost for 911 and looking at options. Just like the sheriff had said, I'm willing to freeze a position for 2 years because I know you really have challenges with the 911. When Stormy came to me that year, he was requesting the $1,059,000 for 2024. But when we sat together in this room, actually down on that end of the bench, he said, we are so concerned about communications. He said, if it'll help shore up our 911 communications, he said, forego our request for the next year and put that into 911. So that's why it stayed 974 for 2 years. So the number we put in for 2025, the $1,059,000 was what we had originally from him 12 months earlier. Now, the 1.238 was what they requested. We weren't able to do that. And let me tell you how we got the $1,191,000. You're going to love this. I believe, let me find a, we cut $30,000 out of the medical examiner. That's where we pay for autopsies.
Yeah.
Because the last 3 or 4 years, we were down below, I think, less than $10,000, and that number had gotten up to about 43, and we just weren't spending the money. And that's a hard thing to project, right, Mr. Sheriff? But anyhow, so we had over-projected medical examiner. When we pulled that out, I made a pitch to William that we really ought to see what we could do for rescue, because I know they struggle. So
Yeah, they do.
So that's where that was not a magical number. I didn't negotiate that with Stormy. It's just what we cut from medical examiner and put there.
Okay. All right, and I see that we continue with the 2.953 for the schools. You've recommended the $130,000 funding for the school nutritional program.
Well, wait a minute, which page are we on?
I'm sorry. We're on page 112.
112.
Now you see why it took me 2 hours to go through this. I can only imagine how long it took to put it all together.
Okay. This is where I get out my tambourine and sing a little for you.
Yeah, and
Because
no explanation needed. I was just saying
But
that
there
we're
is,
making that point.
because the column you're referring to that says admin recommended
Yeah,
was the scenario that was put together to try to incorporate that. It was the scenario that took it to 69 cents, so it'd be a 3-cent tax increase, and then was deleted to hit the revenue
Yeah.
neutral target.
yeah,
So it was in there under the potential chance that the board wanted to talk about any other levels beyond the revenue neutral.
so one of the things that I saw, and I'm jumping ahead on you onto page 121,
Okay?
is that I guess I was ignorant on this fact way back when they decided to add on to the central middle school. So our debt services that we have to pay for that, and you explained it pretty clearly in your summation that you had earlier, is over $500,000 that we pay every year to pay back that loan. That is, that's money we could have used to fund the
And
school
in your
somewhere
audit
else.
each year, they spell it out year by year, principal and interest, so you know exactly what our
So
obligation
even
is.
though we got a $2 million grant,
The county financed 8.2 million.
so they put a burden on the county of 8.2 million. So I just wanted to point that out as I was going through.
And I'm not privy to the history or the
Oh, yeah, I mean,
condition they were addressing at that time.
Yeah, and so also too, this was against the citizens, and you won't hear at this point too, this was against the citizens' vote when we actually went and it was put on the ballot.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
and
I'm getting
it
some
was-
history I
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah, it was voted down,
You mean as a bond referendum?
yes.
Yes.
And it was voted down, and at that point in time, the county commissioners at that time voted that we were going to continue forward with this
Okay, well, that's,
and do it anyway, even though the bond referendum said no.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was an interesting fact. I was going through looking at that.
I
and said-
appreciate
So
learning
I wonder
that.
when this gets paid off, and you answered that question too, so I appreciate that. It says 2038.
May 1st, 2038.
That's great. All
We're a ways out.
right.
No, I've just never had occasion to talk with anyone about that.
Yeah. I see you have here, and this is page 123, and you described this earlier, that we have these opportunities that we can move some money from the capital accounts through Article 44, and that's the $1.1 million for the school system, additional to the,
Well, I believe, William, that's where we move the revenue.
okay,
Yeah, that's where we're taking the
All right.
sales tax and putting it
Putting it
into
in
the
there.
fund.
Okay,
But then you can
gotcha.
pull it out. But today, you have $2.2 million in cash in
Yeah.
that fund.
okay.
So we
Yeah.
put money in so that we can then pull it out for debt service.
Gotcha.
But try to keep a fairly sizable balance there.
Yeah, but the first time me seeing the county's budget, so I got a few questions here and there.
No, that's
Yeah.
great.
That
No,
works.
no, hopefully this helps everybody.
Yeah, it does.
But I do think you've got flexibility to the extent the board's comfortable at whatever level for the school lunch
Yeah.
Yeah.
and breakfast.
I think that was my actually last little dog ear I had here, though. Oh, I got one more. You explained this earlier, and I had this highlighted in my book, but you already explained as far as the fund balances incorporated and all that kind of good stuff. So right now, we're spending, as it sits, $480,000 of the fund balance, correct? And excuse me, this is page 184.
Okay.
Again, that 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. And which line are you at?
This is 184, and this is the fund balance
Okay.
line item.
Yep, I see it.
Okay, so this is the enterprise fund where they're pulling out of that and then paying all the negatives that's in the,
Over on the side, you don't recognize on the 61, that was your work.
okay. All right, so this is more on the enterprise fund side of things. Okay, all right. In your earlier statements that you talked about in your opening dialogue, how much in the budget this year, 2025, 2026, do we plan on reducing the fund balance in our current fiscal year budget that we're working on passing here?
The short answer is we really don't know until we hit
Until you hit it.
June 30. Our cash position has not changed
Okay.
much. We still have 4 quarters, and by cash position, we have a central depository, we have the North Carolina Cash Management. Those two combined, as of May 30, was 14.9
Okay.
million, I think. And again, that's spread across all your
Yes.
funds. But the general fund, I think, was around 7.5
Okay.
million, and your fund balance at June 30 last year was just a little over 8 million, I believe, so we just don't know.
Yeah, I understand that as far as things come up sometimes and all that, but as far as this past year, we did the one vote that we added the 300 and some $1,000 that was taken out of the fund balance for some funds
And that was for utilities.
Yes, for the utility side of it. As far as this budget that was presented to us, how much money comes out of the, that's budgeted to come out of the balance fund? Or is it any at all?
For utilities or?
Yeah, for
In
everything?
general.
Just the 360.
Yeah,
The
for
capital
26, it's 317,000.
Okay.
But those are one-time capital outlay items, and there could be some item on there that, well, maybe you don't want to do or defer till next year. So you've got some,
So really, the only money that comes out of the balance fund,
well, and if we need it, because when the budget rolls forward and the sales tax starts coming in, the last few years, we've exceeded our target
Yeah.
by anywhere from $500,000 to $900,000. So sometimes that gain there helps make up so that you don't have to pull as much of fund balance out on the other side. I mean,
okay,
it just, until you get that one snapshot on June 30,
yeah.
we don't know.
I understand that, but
But if it's appropriated, it is available
available
for
to use.
expenditure.
Yeah. So at this point in time, we are not budgeting any operational costs to come out of the fund balance for the county. It is all capital outlay money that comes out of the fund balance. That is a one-time expenditure. Okay, all right. Thank you. Your team did a real good job. Thank you very much.
Well, again, I know we're just starting tonight, but I really appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. All right.
I'm good.
We're good.
All right. So, thank you once again for a well put together budget, pictures to look at, visual person. This is excellent. Thank y'all for doing that. The only thing I would like to see is kind of echoing Mr. Raintree is around the cost of living. I would like to see if we could do something like that, because we do have a great team. You can see what they've done. Where we've got the sheriff's department too. When I started 21, what was it? What year was it?
21.
21.
Yep.
Starting salary sheriff, 28,000, 26,000. Yeah. I couldn't remember. I knew that there was one, I remember seeing one number up there, $29,000. And we're at 45, some change starting. We've done that over the last few years, a little bit at a time. Hopefully he'll be getting this last portion of it, and then we'll be spread out where we need to be, and then with our COLAs as we increase, we'll keep everything in line. That's been a long time coming. First line of defense, Sheriff's Department, hats off to them. And the sheriff's worked with us, like Manager Sowers said, he's worked with us, he froze positions. I'm saying all that to say we've got a great team here. We're fully staffed in Sheriff's Department. DSS is unheard of. First time since I've been here, and I like to keep it that way. Good help, good people, good county. It costs money. It costs money. So I would like to see what we can do around a COLA, and then just me, I'm all for the maybe maneuvering some funds around for the capital outlay for the school.
Well, and to the COLA, if I could just share, tomorrow night for the commissioners who are going to be able to go to Camden County and meet with your District 1 peers would be an opportune time to pull somebody, or they may even ask you, because they always like to have a report from every county, and they may ask, who's doing a COLA this year? And if so, what amount? I was with 2 or 3 of the managers this week for the Albemarle Solid Waste, and there was at least one county, I think it was doing a deferred COLA till January. They just, with things happening in the national economy, nobody knows the impact for certain with the tariff changes. And I still haven't gotten my head around what impact is all of that having on the farmers. Pitt and I spoke earlier today, and he was saying he's hearing that an awful lot of commodities are just being held in storage because they are so uncertain about the future. So to take some time with this might be...
and we might have to go back to it like we did the sheriff's one time. We get that quarter out and be able to come back and do something. So I would just like us to have that conversation. School technology, I mean, I'm not saying we had to fund all of it at one time, but I feel like we need to maybe do something along the computers and the nutrition program. I'm for that. And something else you and I were speaking about all of the
EC program.
The EC program, if we can throw, when I say throw, when I'm not just throwing money around, but if we can touch that pot any one way or the other, I feel like that's part of our duties as a county, to help support that as well. But other than that, I like having new commissioners on board. And the first one that I ever got, I went over and what was that thick? And I sat down and I had a calculator. And,
I think paper was thicker back then.
Man. And I went through it. And it was, my numbers and their numbers were pretty close. And but I enjoy it. I like, budget time can be stressful, but I do enjoy it, seeing the money and revenue we have to work with. But thank you for your team and all the work they've done. Greatly appreciate it.
We're glad to do it.
Oh, Commissioner Forsyth?
Okay. So I could reiterate a lot of what's been said. I'll try not to do that. A couple of things, the school budget. I think you showed it going from 2.9 still up to 3.1 or something, including the school lunch stuff. I totally support the lunch stuff. I think we absolutely should fence that. I don't think we should go a nickel higher than last year's budget, simply because the school, in my opinion, and I know we had a big kumbaya session before, the earnest effort was not put forward to really consider something. So I think we should fund at the same level, fence the school lunch program. As far as capital outlay goes, the computers are admirable. Unfortunately, we all sitting here know this, the public knows this. We have 5 schools that we really don't need, for sure, at least 1, maybe 2. And to fund computers for 5 schools right now, when we could potentially close 1 right away in a year or so, and maybe a second one before long, is not fiscally responsible in my opinion. So I'd say we should fund at most 3 of the 5 schools, the money for that. And there are computers already there. So if they have to shift around some of the older computers from out of the, say, the high school and the middle school and move them to a couple of the elementary schools, I think that's appropriate for them to do. I think it's incumbent upon them to make hard choices and reduce their budget. The lunch program is critical in my opinion, and the computers are advantageous, but I don't believe we should give any incentive to bumping the budget up. So that's my editorial on the school board part of it. Let's look at this thing here first. I want to start with this, your budget message addendum. Looking here, I see under this county FY 2026, it says proposed budget expenditures. The second item from the bottom says transfers, $1,147,000 is recommended this year. Is that the transfer that's shown on, that Commissioner Berryman referred to on 123, the school transfer? It's not exactly the same number. It's not exactly the same number. One's 111,000, the other's 147,000. So, I mean, I'm not sure that's right. I don't read this. The 120, page 123 is the part that Commissioner Berryman referred to before about transfers to the school. And I wasn't sure if on this summary here, Mr. Robertson, if this is the same thing. Is that the same transfers? I'm just trying to figure out that summary sheet what the transfers are.
Oh, it's the
26.
the addition of the 2, I believe, because that's the $36,000 difference.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I think that's
So
accounting
one
for
says a
that.
control total, and then the other one said transfers. That's why I didn't assume the 2. Is that would tend to add up.
It was at the 2 that's where my brain went with it, with
Okay.
the, yeah.
See if he wants to confirm that.
Minus 255. Yeah.
The 1147 is the school capital reserve of 111 and the 36,000.
It is. Okay. All right. Thank you. That answers that. Okay. Moving to the next sheet here. That's the next page in that same addendum summary here. Mr. Robertson, he sees it.
Revenues?
Looking at the revenues page. Okay, so Commissioner Berryman also spoke about this, taking the $317,000 coming out of fund balance. And the narrative in here talks about roof repairs and a bunch of other stuff potentially, but we're setting aside that money. And quite honestly, I remember during some of the work sessions when some of this stuff was generally talked about, no numbers attached. I remember the animal shelter talking about a roof. After we talked about it significantly, it was a 20-year-old roof, but there was no leaks or nothing else significant. We said that didn't have to happen. I don't think we vetted these other projects, and I'm not predisposed to saying, okay, let's throw a $317,000 approval right up front for some building repairs that aren't very well defined. I think we're taking money out of, our fund balance. And again, we've talked about this, and I know I sound like I'm the only one advocating this, but you looked at your sweet and sour 7, our fund balance compared to everybody else's is significantly lower. And they drove it home with us at the NCACC training that was jointly done with UNC School of Government about shooting for 20 to 25%. And I don't like the idea of setting aside taking money out of fund balance right off the start for poorly defined. And I'm not criticizing y'all, but right now it's poorly defined to take money out of
Well,
fund
let us
balance.
get you a detailed list on that instead of just this summary.
Absolutely. Okay.
And again, the meeting tomorrow night when y'all are together, if Perquimans and Chowan for some reason are not going to fund the roof, then we wouldn't need to. But if the other 2 are going to fund their portion of the roof, we might want to consider marrying
Right.
up with that.
We don't have a choice, though. If the other 2 decide to do it, then we have to do it, right?
the majority.
It'd be awfully awkward if we don't.
For what now? Oh,
If two-thirds decide to fund it, then our
are you
majority
talking
would
about
be,
for the
we would kind
animal
of.
shelter?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
just one of the items. If you see,
Right.
that,
Yeah.
that was a small amount compared to this total 300,000.
Right.
But yeah, that's one item. Point is, I think we need to have more than just set aside 307,000.
Right. No, in fact, if we choose to have a work session as a follow-up, the biggest portion of that, I think, is 167,000. It's for projects and capital within emergency management. Probably most critical is, last year, the board approved new repeaters for the radio system. And I'm not able to tell you what a repeater is, but they tell me it's really important. And the tower that we have is owned by the state of North Carolina Highway Patrol. They are refusing to let us hang our new system on the tower unless we reinforce the brackets to attach it. So there's there's been an engineering study, and so there's a $50,000 item right there that might
Okay.
be most critical
That
of
one sounds
all
like it
of
would be
them.
worthwhile, so if we get together another work
Yeah,
session, some of those details would be very helpful.
And Bill would be the best one.
But then again, I guess the question is does that have to come out of, capital outlay have to come out of fund balance, or
No,
we're just choosing to do that?
No, it's just-
Because from my perspective, like last year, we took 700 and some thousand out initially, and then last month, when we quickly voted and added another 300 some thousand out of fund balance, we spent $1 million out of fund balance. And to me, I don't really consider that a balanced budget when you're saying, if I was taking my paycheck each week and saying, well, I can pay all my bills, but I got to take $500 out of savings to do it. That's not really me operating a balanced budget in my home. And I guess I see it kind of the same way here, taking money out of fund balance. And this is Dave on the pedestal. I mean, I think building up the fund balance is a good thing. We could do things like a track for our county, which everybody laughs and says, why doesn't Gates County have one? I mean, the school board meetings, people say that. Building up some fund balance for big projects like that would seem to make a lot of sense versus kind of gradually spending our savings away. That's just Dave's perspective. So, all right, if we could get follow-up on that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really good discussion because some of those things are public safety related and they're one time.
Now, the next thing is, I guess on this page where you have summary positions, I just want to make note, I think it's obvious, but it looks like in the last 2 years, we added a total of 6 positions in the county out of 112. There was 106 2 years ago, now it's at 112. And it looks like, I just want to make sure, there was 8 additions to the IT department. And actually 2 of those, it looks like, came from the water department, but 6 new positions within the finance department.
Finance and IT are a combined cost center,
Okay.
whereas they used to be separate. And we used to have a department called customer service, which was down in the enterprise fund, and you'll see where we moved that to finance effective July 1,
Yep.
23.
Yep.
But there had been some new positions. When I arrived in Gates County, there were 3 or 4 vacant positions that were fairly newly created that ended up being the IT director, the assistant county manager / HR, a GIS technician in planning and zoning, and I know I'm
These all
forgetting.
say, yeah, okay, so you're saying it could be an IT person in zoning department?
No, there was a position added there. What we could do is give you a further breakdown of where all the new positions have been the last few years.
I mean, just my perspective is I hate unnecessary bureaucracy. You point out we were smaller than others, but at the same time, it looks like we had a big jump up, it seems like, in that section. And just wanted to understand that for the record because it's going to continue on.
Well, if you look at, in the aggregate, administration, finance, IT, in the aggregate, in fiscal '23, there were 14 positions. In fiscal,
Yeah, we lost one in public safety.
and then in fiscal '24, it was 12, 16, I'm not getting my math, 17, then we got it back down to 6, because there's one position we've frozen, or proposed to freeze it and not fund it. This is just a summary table.
Okay.
We can bring you all
Okay,
some more detail.
just want to make sure I understand
Yeah,
the growth
no,
of
it's
our
all
organization. Okay.
good information.
All right, next plot was, So, yeah, I made a motion, I think a month ago, 2 months ago, about us holding the senior positions to 1%, but like I think Commissioner Craddock said and others, I mean, I still would hold with, if we apply COLA, if it's legally possible to do that, to do it for the vast majority of the county, consistent with maybe with what other counties are doing. But I still believe that we should be holding the senior staff to a little bit of skin in the game, and that should be a 1% increase to me for I think it was, I'd asked for folks making more than $80,000 a year, they get a 1% increase. Not saying nothing, but I think that's
Again,
something
I
worth
think that'd
looking.
be a great dialogue to have with your peers as you have an opportunity
Yeah.
to talk with folks and maybe look at even some other jurisdictions.
Okay. School nutrition program, talk about that. Justification for those. Okay, now let me go to this one. Okay, yeah, you mentioned now, they brought it up, I didn't want to interrupt when anybody else was talking, so I bit my lip, but you were talking about the water and sewer fund, funding a senior position. I get that very much so, that we do the same thing where I've worked everywhere as a public utilities director. Some portion of my money, salary is paid for by the water enterprise or the sewer enterprise. That's totally normal. Y'all were saying something about 29, 30%, but I didn't know 29, 30% of what? Of your salary is charged to that enterprise fund?
I don't know if it's just salary or our cost center. It's the admin cost center.
And
So that would-
is it just for you, or is there like multiple people charging to that?
Yeah, basically admin and finance all together, because all of us pull part of the weight to support that program.
Okay. All right. This one here. So under, this is on page of the budget, page 60. I was looking under professional services for planning and economic development. I was trying to find in here where it shows the cost for Summit Engineering, the additional work we're continuing to have them do, stuff we've done. Would that not appear in the planning and economic
No,
development?
I think actually that money was in the Board of Commissioners governing body cost center,
Yeah,
because
I saw something up there. Is
Yeah.
there a reason why that's being put under the commissioners instead of under economic development? It
I
seems-
think that was strictly historic from when that project started, and we just left it there. And help me out if that's your understanding too.
But reasonably to me, for tracking purposes, it's an economic development.
Yeah, but I left it there because it's the director of the commission, so
So anything we vote on gets directed, it's going to go
No,
to the
no, it was
governing
just,
body.
when that money was initially appropriated, that's where the county had placed it.
Okay.
So for tracking purposes, so you can see year to year the continuity, we've just left it there.
Okay.
But that's a great question, because we've got 459,000 for A&E, architecture and engineering services for the community center. When you're ready to launch that as a board, that is in a grant. But you're right, that money gets tracked in that grant. The summit, I believe, was all local money.
Yeah, I'm just,
That the
the
board-
only reason I ask that is because I get to a point where if you really do start talking to your peers about how much you spend for economic development and everything, if we were really trying to go back and look and sort data, nobody'd see that we had spent anything really on economic development, and we wouldn't really be comparing apples to apples. I like to see it where it belongs, but that's just me.
How hard will it be to change it? Or is it once it's set there, the state mandates you keep it there?
I think a few journal entries, if I don't know how far back you can go.
I can't go back to the audit year because it's going to change the director.
Right.
Yeah.
But this,
Anything
from this
within this
point
fiscal
forward,
year?
Benchmark forward.
from this point forward, though, we could do it correctly. And just have to make sure we know that we spent,
In fact, whatever y'all have voted on to put in there, I can look it over to a line item in her budget or the
yeah.
county budget, and also move any payments we made over there. And all I get done to the end of the year, but I can't look back to previous years.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, within reason. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point, yeah. Just a clear explanation. Now we understand where we're at. Okay, now I'm looking at page 78, and this is more like trying to understand something. We have here under section school-age childcare. And how does this compare? I mean, we're showing it zeroed out. Is this something that was transferred to the schools? Because I know the school now has some
I believe it's actually
Daycare.
managed by the cooperative extension, because that's how it was set up historically by the county. And I think this is the child care that's in one of the schools to serve the staff, the teachers and folks. And it's a self-supporting system where the daycare fees pay for those salaries.
Okay, because the school board did have a couple line items for
New beginnings.
new beginnings and stuff. That's not this?
And that may be another program, I'm not
Okay,
sure.
I wasn't
This is
sure
a
either.
different program.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
thank you.
No, but that's good
Okay.
clarification.
All right, skip over that one. Okay, for social services, I'm starting on page 100 is where their stuff is, their salary and everything.
Okay.
The project that was funded a couple years ago, we talked about this a little bit in the work session, to convert all those gigantic monstrous piles of paper files they have there in their building to electronic format. During the work session, they were saying, oh, we're going to drop that requirement. It's been too difficult to contract and everything else. But it was some $50,000 we had on the books for them to spend. And I guess want to make sure, where is that captured here? And are we just saying, oh, we'll take the requirement away, but you keep the money for your budget? Are we looking at that to make sure that's not the case? You follow what
I
I'm
think
getting
that's
at?
one that's just been deferred for a while and not funded.
Can we make sure, I'd like to make sure we know that
Which-
if we keep in,
Which
if their
page
budget
are we
is,
referring to?
well, that's what I'm saying. I started looking on page 100 through like 106 or something, 103, and I couldn't see it clearly where if they're not doing it, then it shouldn't be in their budget is all I'm trying to get at. Can we make sure that's the case? Because I don't want 50,000 of slush fund.
I think when they started paperwork, he said they weren't funded this year.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't believe there's money in there for that.
Yeah,
But that's a good
because that was
clarification.
discussed, and it was unclear to me whether they were still going to keep the money in their budget and try and do it later. I think I even asked that in the work session. Are you still going to try and do it? Okay, moving on to page,
Commissioner Forsythe, can I, one note to that point? Page 103,
yeah.
service and maintenance contracts.
Well, it was 47, but then it drops. See, I've got a note here too, but
Yeah.
it says it still
I
had
didn't know if that was
10,000
in there,
there.
because that was just real close to the
That was
$50,000.
for IT support.
Okay.
Is that what the project
On
was?
that particular line item, and the sound side. And we are trying to shift from using that third-party vendor to relying more on our IT folks to do that internally, to be consistent across the,
That's good. I just was asking about extra bills and IT. That's a good answer. I like that.
it's a work in progress. We can't
I like
solve
that one a
everybody's
lot.
problem, but they try.
Some more with the sweet and sour? Is that what we're hearing?
That's more sweet and sour. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I'll give you that one. Wait, hold on. Let's see. Is there one more? I think there was one, but I think Commissioner Berryman got it already.
That's why I get to go first now, Dave.
All right. I'm the critical guy. These guys have given you tons of kudos, and I would tell you, and I think I probably would be, if I was real honest, I'd say that your effort here, have given you an A-, which is pretty good. I mean, for me, getting an A is a pretty good deal. I'd give you an A- on this. But I got to tell you, though, much like a professor, we did ask about seeing a budget like this in May. Could it even be possible by the end of April? And I know y'all have put in work for this and lots of things to it, but I'm dropping your A- to a B-, like a professor would for what I perceive is turning in late. You can tell me it's legally on time, but I still think we should have been able to see this sooner than now. So that's just one opinion here. I'm just voicing that opinion. So with that, that's all I've got.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, I have, again, a few things, but I think most of them have been hit by the others. Mine is mostly clarification. This one you hit on earlier. Okay. So this is a question, when it talks to those amended requests from the school board. And I will say, I somewhat changed my opinion on what I had written down based on you talking about the moving around of old computers in the elementary school. Like, I revamped my opinion a little bit to that. But my question was I think the school nutrition program is important to all 5 of us, and
Yeah.
that's just my opinion. If I'm wrong, I can be wrong, but I think that is important to all 5 of us. I think it's important to all 5 of the Board of Education members. Would that 130 be something that could come out of that reserve fund under the 2.2 million reserve fund, with the hope that next year we will have the Article 46 tax approved to move forward from there to fund the schools out of that source.
Those expenditures qualify.
Those qualify. So that would not have to touch our 2.953 if we could do that for 1 year with the hopes of the Article 46 coming through on the next, I believe we said November general election would be the first it could be on the ballot, is that correct? Or is it May, the primary?
It could be.
Or March?
I think it's March.
March in the primary.
And then
Okay.
it takes a few months to, once it's approved,
Right.
to actually have the money roll in.
Right.
But you might be in a position then for the fiscal year when you're sitting here again,
Right.
to back off of pulling money out of the capital reserve for that and have it fund if it passes.
If it passes.
I was going to say, that's the thing, is talking to
So
others.
that is the point now would be education needs to be going out now, from now to March for Article 46 in my head, just
I'm
because
glad you
that is
talked about the
important.
bond referendum failing, because that, again, that's
The bond referendum
something that
failed
gets dialed
and
into the.
the county opted to continue forward with that. So that would not be something we'd want to do, but I think with enough education for what Article 46 is, how much it's not going to affect your pocket, and what the funds would be used for, would be beneficial. Okay.
And let me mention this too, Article 46 is not restricted. Doesn't have to be for schools. Y'all
Right.
could use it for something else, but if you think it would be more palatable to the voters to know it's going for school nutrition and something, but again, so you don't have to make that decision now, but
Right.
you've got some latitude there. That's not restricted like so many of the others.
Yeah. So my point mentioned Article 46, though, was just to say with this year, for the 130 out of that 2.2 reserve fund might be an option as far as budgeting going forward. Second, a question on the employee benefits, and I'm going to assume that this is just, the 904,432 is just a number for those that have opted in, or is that an assumed number that if all employees opted in? So on the employee benefits under the budget message, because I know not all employees opt in, so I was just curious if that's the actual number or if that is the assumed number should all take part.
I think it's the all-inclusive, I think it's everyone.
If everybody did, and at what point, and I should know this, but at what point would we know how many opted in and what that real number would be?
It was open season.
So at the moment, who have not opted in,
Okay.
Are we talking about employees or retirees?
It says the health insurance, dental coverage, life insurance for current staff, county pays 100%, 904,432, which is 9,942.12 per employee for the full-time employees. I was just curious because I know some opt out because they have insurance with spouses, they have other insurances from different places. So if this number is going to be significantly less because we have people opting out, I was just trying to verify that.
We can look at that.
Okay.
I would imagine we're trying to cover the ones that are currently
Current, okay.
participating and then working under the assumption
that they would carry
if there is
forward.
a new position or an expanded position, and
I just know if we have, 125 employees, if 25 aren't getting it, then that number would drop significantly, is all I was thinking.
well, we can
Okay.
inquire and find out how many are not.
If we can verify that, that would be great. Okay. That's all for that book. One sec. That was answered. That was answered. Okay. Okay, and that last one was answered. So that was all of my questions then. And I will go ahead and say with regard to, we were talking about another work session, did a little bit of a poll one-on-one. I talked to the county manager and each of the commissioners individually, and we have a consensus that I believe works for all 6 of us, which would be Monday, June 9th at 10 a.m. for a work session.
So you'll be recessing?
If we could
this week?
recess this meeting when we're to that point here, and then reconvene on Monday, June 9th at 10 a.m. I'd recognize for those at home that are going to comment about it being in a workday. I absolutely appreciate that. Thankfully, these meetings can be played out, and the public hearing will be on June 18th for anyone that does have input they would like to make publicly. If you cannot make it to that meeting, we would love to have you at the regular meeting on June 18th at 6 p.m. But just for the sake of having the opportunity to sit down together again and have time to do it, and the schedules we have, unfortunately, 10 a.m. on that Monday looks like the next available time, and that would also allow us for another workshop closer to the 18th, should it be needed. So those conversations were had. But, yeah, do we have any other follow-up questions for Mr. Sauer? No? Okay. So
Oh,
guess-
actually, I do. So, and for myself, when I got this on Friday, or actually wanted to get it on Friday, became aware of it, it's very difficult for me to get from Core Peak, and I know Commissioner Berryman's all the way over in the Hoswell area. It's difficult for us to get over here and get that thing right away. It's a quick turnaround, and is it too big of a burden to try and figure out a way to get ours dropped to us?
Oh.
Because
I'll take mine electronically. I mean, that's,
I can't, I can't do it. I can't print out and
You
can't
got the
review
paper,
it.
yeah.
Is there a way to even have, if there's a utility worker or something, just drop it off and leave it on the porch? I don't really care if that's not
If that's a
inappropriate.
preference, we can.
We can figure it out, I think.
Just because it's difficult to get over here. There was a graduation Friday night, so I knew I couldn't get over here before that. And then Saturday morning, luckily you grabbed it and I was able to come get it from you. But that's difficult. That's going to always be a difficulty, I think, trying to get here
Okay.
before the end of the day on
We can-
Friday.
Yeah.
Work on that.
Okay, we can do that. All right, well then I guess that will conclude the presentation of the budget, and we will move into some commissioner updates. We'll start down here.
I have no update for this month.
Okay, that's next.
Likewise.
Next.
No updates.
I got to say something. I just want to say, I think it was really neat for those of us that were able to go, Commissioner Roundtree and Truman, to go to the graduation. It was pretty cool. And, you know, I didn't have, my kid graduated last year. I got two that are going to be freshmen this coming year. But it's pretty emotional to see, you know, all the parents, the happiness, the whole camaraderie of the whole community, Gates County, with folks graduating, to see a couple of great guest speakers. Benjamin Saunders gave a good presentation and talked about the good things they're doing for a lot of students and scholarships. But then the young man that was the valedictorian, I hope I say his name right,
Kronbauer, and his mom is actually one of our deputies.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. And pretty impressive young man, nice speech, the salutatorian, also cool. But then just in general, the whole atmosphere was great, and I felt honored to get to go there as a commissioner and just watch this. Like I say, that it was a pretty humbling experience, and had tears in my eyes a couple of times. And people that know me know those don't come very often. So it was pretty good, and just want to say that was great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said on Facebook, that's one of my favorite nights of a year as commissioner. I just think it's incredible to watch. And my husband likes to note the anxiety you can see as they walk up to the stage versus their shoulder relaxing when they're walking off the stage is pretty cool to see. So yeah, for my chair updates, I don't really have many either. Looking forward to tomorrow night. I'm going to Camden County with the District 1 meeting. Next week, we're going to be County Advocacy Days in Wake County over in Raleigh. So looking to get on the agendas for Senator Hannick and Representative Ward, for those of us that are able to make it there. And then, again, Monday, we will be recessing until 10 a.m. If any of the public have questions, comments, anything that they would like to bring up to us individually before then, feel free to reach out to any of us. Contact information is online. If you can make it out, that's great. And if not, again, June 18th will be the public hearing for the budget as presented and recommended. Lastly, we'll look for the public comments for the end. If there were any signed up for the 3-minute, no? Okay. You don't have to sign up. I was gonna say, if anybody has anything they'd like to come, you have we have 3 minutes at the end for public comment. And just state your name and the voting district you're from.
Thank you. Sam Solomon, Gatesville, greater downtown Gatesville. Makes quick, Commissioner. This is strictly a comment. I know everybody here is eager to do better with the water and improve the quality. A few months ago, we had a green consultant or something, I don't remember They came in with some ideas on how to do some test wells and stuff. I've been listening for some other companies to come in and present what their idea is. I know in business, the different companies have different ways of doing things and different expertise. And I assume y'all put out a request for bid, not a bid, to bid, but ask them, what do you think we need to do here to improve this? That's my comment.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you. All right, so if there are no other comments, we will ask for a motion to recess until June 9th at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? All right, we are adjourned, or recessed, not adjourned, recessed.
Well, I'll take my A-minus.
Actually, I was.
Correct,
I didn't get
Mike.
many of those as a kid.
Go ahead, just sign this.